Financial Planner. Follow us on YouTube.
It has begun. Russia and Syria are now asking the U.S. to leave Syria. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, A.J. Sessions, he was testifying in front of Congress, and it looks like Attorney General Jeff Sessions directed senior federal prosecutors to evaluate certain issues requested by congressional Republicans. Now, they're looking into the Uranium 1 deal and the alleged unlawful dealings related to the Clinton Foundation. And it looks like, and hopefully this will move forward, it looks like they might open an investigation where they're going to be looking into this. Now, the Republicans want a special counsel. They want to hire someone, bring them in, allow them to do this. AJ is kind of fighting this off, and we're going to have to see where this goes, but this should be investigated. It looks like there was a lot of underhanded dealings with this, and I think this is the right direction. And again, all of this information that is coming out is directly tied to the cabal and what they've done over the many, many years, where they've been deceiving the American people. They've been working for themselves. They've been making themselves very, very wealthy, blaming it on all others, and we can see that it's all falling apart. We see already out in Hollywood with the child trafficking, the pedophilia, and all these individuals that are being called out for sexual harassment. That's coming out. We also see it starting in D.C. right now. And this is going to spread because all of this was hidden from the public, and now the truth is coming out. We see the EU Parliament. They're launching a control campaign urging voters to support the European project, because what we see right now is there are many, many countries out there saying, listen, we'd like to leave this European project. The UK, they have their Brexit, but again, they're still part of the system. And we see other countries are looking at this. Italy, well, Catalonia would like to remove themselves from Spain, and we'd have to see where they would go from there. And we see that the EU completely, rejects independence. Spain rejects independence. But there are many other countries out there that are looking to leave the European project. And many people are saying that this European project is going to fail over time. And again, this was created to help the agenda of a one world government, where the different countries in Europe were all reporting to one central banking system. And the central banking system started out where they were just creating currency, but eventually they were telling these countries what to do. And these were non-elected leaders. And now the EU is getting worried. We can see that they're trying to push their agenda to keep the whole entire system together. Out in Venezuela, we understand there's major, major problems there. But as we can see, Venezuela is dealing with the petro yuan. We also see Russia is making a move. And they are going to write off $3 billion in Venezuelan debt, which is going to be a little bit of a relief for the Venezuelan government. And Russia will sign an agreement with the officials from Caracas to write off $3 billion in debt, which Venezuela currently owes to the Russian Federation. This move is widely seen as a goodwill gesture, and they're hoping that since they're allowing Venezuela to do this, they will allow Russia in to help with maybe their natural resources. Maybe they will write contracts with some of the companies in Russia. And we can see it at the same time. This is what happened with Cuba, because Russia wrote off $3 billion in debt, and Cuba promised joint projects in energy, transport, and healthcare. And this is why the U.S. stepped in and started relations with Cuba. This is one of the reasons. There are other reasons that go along with this, but this was one of them, because they saw that Russia was making a move economically with Cuba. They didn't want this to happen. So this is why all of a sudden Obama came out and said, whoa, 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 and it wasn't just Obama. There was other individuals saying, we can't let this happen. This is why he came out, sanctions don't work. This is why we need good relations, because they saw what was happening. Russia and China, they're going around the world, and they are making economic deals throughout Africa. They're making deals throughout the Middle East. They're making deals throughout Asia. They're not using armed forces. They're not invading countries. They're going into countries saying, listen, we can help with all these projects. We can fund them. We can work together. This is what the U.S. used to do. And then what happened was the cabal took over, slowly but surely, and we turned into a warmongering nation where we went into all these countries, devastated the country, and had regime change. Because these countries really didn't want to deal with the United States, the cabal. And we forced them into doing what we wanted. And this is what happens at the end of a cycle, because these countries were moving away from the dollar. Libya was moving away from the dollar. Iraq was moving away from the dollar. They wanted to sell their natural resources, not using the petrodollar. They wanted to use gold. They wanted to use other currency. The UN said yes. And this was a problem because those in the cabal, they made a lot of money off of this system. And what happens is once they hear about this, they need to stop it. And this is why they use military force. If you really look back in history, at the end of each one of these empires, they spread themselves too thin. They invaded all these countries. They tried to hold their empire together. And eventually what happens? It falls apart. This is what is happening right now. The monetary system is falling apart. The empire is falling apart. And it's almost done. We're at the end game here, people. We see out in Zimbabwe, something is going on. There are tanks on the streets. They're talking about a coup, and we're going to have to wait to see what happens, but it looks like something is in the works right now. Now, we already see, and we mentioned this before, and we knew it was coming, that Russia and Syria, they were weeks away from eliminating the Islamic State. Russia actually said about 8 weeks, and that brought us to the end of this year. And we can see Russia and Syria, they're already pushing trial balloons to see how the United States and the coalition forces react to this message. And the message is, you need to leave Syria. Now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, he has slammed the U.S. for its presence in Syria being not only illegal, but deeply counterproductive. Because again, the United States, the coalition forces, they've been supporting the Islamic State. They've been hitting the infrastructure of Syria, allowing the Islamic State to gain more land, supporting Al-Qaeda, supporting the moderate rebels. This has nothing to do with democracy. This has nothing to do with a grassroots movement. This has to do with the cabal pushing their agenda. And now Syria and Russia are saying, I think it's time for you to leave. You're here illegally. And basically, they're saying that if you don't leave, this is an act of aggression. Actually, it's an act of war. And we can see right now that they're saying that the U.S. actively aids the Islamic State by evacuating terrorists from zones where their forces are being eliminated by the Syrian troops. The U.S. fails to fire upon the Islamic State terrorists when given a clear and safe opportunity. The always illegal presence of the U.S. in Syria violates the Geneva Agreements, which as recently as the weekend the U.S. committed itself to uphold. Syria is being prohibited from exercising its rights to liberate the entirety of its legally recognized territory because of the illegal U.S. presence in Syria. The U.S. proxy militia under the charge of Kurdish militants are part of these wider problems, and we can see already that Syria and Russia, they are now pushing the agenda. They wanted to see what the United States would do, how they would react to this message, and we can see already the U.S. is not reacting well. And we see already that Mattis is out there saying that the U.S. won't leave Syria until the Islamic State stops fighting. Which, what does that really mean? He didn't define fighting. Syria is a sovereign nation. Assad is the elected leader, the recognized elected leader of this nation. The United States and the rest of the forces are in this country illegally. And we can see right now, this is just the first step. What they're going to do is they're going to officially ask the United States, probably through the UN, to leave Syria. And this is going to be a problem because the cabal doesn't want to leave. They still want to be in Syria, but they're not allowed to be. And the rest of the world is going to look at this and say, well, wait a minute. This country, which is a sovereign country under the UN and around the world, it has an elected leader, and they're asking this country, the U.S. and the coalition forces, to leave, and they don't want to leave? Wasn't this what Nazi Germany did? Didn't they invade countries and they never left? Isn't the U.S. doing the same thing under the illusion of terrorism? I mean, think about it. We've occupied, I'm not saying we, but the cabal has occupied all of these countries. And the cabal will not leave. They won't leave Iraq. They won't leave Libya. They won't leave Lebanon, Sudan, Somalia, Ukraine. You name it. They invaded, they conquered, and they're staying. They killed hundreds of thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands of people had to leave these countries. And we see already that time is ticking down now. The clock is ticking down. We knew it was coming. Here it is. This is the trial balloon. They wanted to see what the United States was going to do. And of course, they're using all different types of excuses that, we can't leave because if we leave, there's going to be another terrorist group that takes its place. We need to support the Kurdish territory. I mean, they're coming up with anything and everything. They're even using the Geneva Convention, and we need to follow this. And they're just coming up with everything they can possibly think of why they need to stay. And there is no reason for them to stay. Absolutely no reason. And when a country says, listen, you need to get out, you need to get out. Or it's an invasion. It's an act of war. So we're going to have to see where this goes, because we're going to see that Russia and Syria, they're going to keep this message up, and they're going to continually push this message. And we can see the cabal is not going to react too well to this because their plan is falling apart. Now, we know that they're trying to push this event with Iran. This is going to push their agenda, where they're going to have to act and push their false flag, their war making, much harder right now because they are running out of time. And like I said, by the end of this year, the Islamic State most likely will no longer exist in Syria. Al-Qaeda most likely will not exist in Syria. And this is the time frame that we're looking at. So we're watching the cabal, we're seeing what they're doing, and we can see they're getting ready to push an event because they don't have much time left. The economy is falling apart. The system is breaking down. And I'm talking about the real economy. I'm talking about the fake numbers at the stock market or whatever the U.S. government gives us and the Fed gives us. I'm talking about the real heart of the economy, where the people work, the people produce, the people spend. That is breaking down. And if that breaks down, there's going to be nothing they can do. So the clock is ticking down. We're definitely going to see something happen very soon because they have no other alternative. So we're looking at Iran. We're looking at North Korea. We might even be looking at Syria, because if they just let all of this implode and they lose Syria, they don't start a war with North Korea, they don't start a war with Iran, they don't push any type of false flag event, the cabal is completely done. And this is why they're not going to let it happen. They're going to go out fighting. They spent hundreds of years of preparing for this. They've been doing this for a very long time, infiltrating the government. And they're not about to give up right now. They're about to push their plan forward.